you have made it from scratch, and this podcast is all about rags to riches.
hmm
How to one? What is the one I would say advice you would like to give so that people go from rags to riches? Hey everyone, you're most welcome to this amazing episode of Rags to Riches. We have an incredible guest over here who is joining us from the other country, from USA. And the topics that we are going to cover is all about marketing, organic marketing secrets. Let me tell you a little about our incredible guest that we have over here. So his name is Damon Burton, and he is known for outranking a $1 billion company on Google nearly 20 years ago, which led to his success in the SEO industry, right? And he also authored the best-selling SEO book and founded SEO National in 2007, working with high-profile clients and gaining recognition in publications like uh, Entrepreneur Magazine, Forbes Magazine, BuzzFeed, and USA Weekly. The more I would say, the less it would be. So, dear guests, you're most welcome on the show.
Hey, I appreciate the opportunity to connect and share with your audience. I'm excited.
Perfect, perfect. This sounds really super interesting to be connected over here with you. And what I find that I've been interviewing a lot of incredible guests out there from the globe, and my audience asked me that bring someone who is talking about organic marketing secrets, right? And when I stumbled upon your profile over there, and I see that you have also shared that you helped maybe a teenager to get some business going up. I was like,
hmm
I got inspired because I come from that age only. So I'm like, okay, let's go ahead and ask the question, right? So here are the questions that would go on. So the first question comes like, what is the organic marketing secret? Like,
What's
what
the
is the
organic marketing secret?
what is the organic marketing, and how do people get most out of it?
Yeah, so my background is in the world of SEO. So I've had my agency for 17 years. So I can talk a lot about SEO, but then I think what's also valuable is to talk about the way you can pursue organic social media traffic as well.
Right.
And the way that you do it is the same, whether it's social media or it's for search engines. The easiest way to stand apart from your competition is to just share your own unique voice. I think a lot of times us as marketers get too obsessed with what everybody else is doing and we just follow everybody else's patterns. But just because somebody else is doing it doesn't mean that it's right. And I've found my most success by often ignoring what the trends are and not getting distracted by new things and changing. The value that I've received and the way that I've achieved success is by staying focused on one thing and just staying in my area of expertise. So when you take the opportunity to talk about your background, to showcase your personality, what happens is when you share who you are, whether it's in social media or in a blog, then people start to build a relationship with you. Subconsciously, they start to better understand you. Just like you talked about, the more that you looked into my background, the more it related to you, and there was a connection that started to happen with you. That's a great example. So it may not be the fastest way to get traffic, but it is one of the most stable, consistent, predictable ways to get traffic. So the more that you showcase what you're doing, like if you go look at any of my social media stuff, I'm almost never selling anything, but I sell a ton. And so what happens is I talk about my wife and kids. I talk about the clients that I get to work with. I talk about my travels. And so people start to better understand who I am as a person. And then once people buy from you when they connect with you as a person, when they trust you. They might buy your services and pay you as a business, but they choose to make the purchase when they trust you as a person. So the more that you can showcase your personality and just authentically who you are, the more people will start to relate to you. And over time, that begins to scale. And then when you get those clients that trust you, then they introduce you to their other business partners and their friends. And because they trust you, then they trust you, and then they trust you. And so one client turns into two, turns into four, turns into 16. So I found success in our organic traffic by just being myself and sharing that with the world.
All right, all right. So you're just saying that sharing your personal things out there, that can also make the sales happen when people can connect with you.
Mhm.
Right. Okay. Perfect. So here, I had a lot of question about marketing and getting more clients and everything. But since you have been into this industry for the last 2 decades that you mentioned and we have read over here, I would ask the questions like you also mentioned that we have to focus on one thing, right? What we are
Mhm.
doing, we are not getting distracted by the Sine syndrome objects, right?
Mm.
So how do people get that much of extreme focus to stay connected on that one track, and they believe that the results are going to come?
Yeah, it's a good question because in the beginning it can be frustrating, but because like I even said in what I was just sharing, it may not be the fastest way to traffic, but like if you look at it maybe like a race, would you rather run one long marathon and it's longer, takes more time, but it's just one and you do it successfully and you can be proud about it, but it takes longer to finish? Or would you rather constantly be starting a new race every day and never having a final goal? And that's kind of what business is like, where it's, you have two choices. It's either you can pick something and see it to the finish line, or you can constantly restart and never finish anything. So what happens is when you stick to something long enough, then you start to see the rewards. You don't have to stick to something long enough to find success. You have to stick to something long enough to start to see the rewards. Then when you start to see the rewards, then it makes it more realistic to stay longer to find success. Now, I've talked to I have lots of other friends who are entrepreneurs and have found success in different ways. And a lot of them do multiple things. I only do one thing. I only do SEO. Now, in talking to my other friends, they might they might do paid ads. They might also do social media. They might also own a physical store. They invest in other businesses, and they have six things. So they got six things, and I have one thing. And when I talk to those other friends, let's say we both financially have this. We both make about the same. But what the difference is, would you rather stick to one thing that takes a little bit longer, but when you finally find success, you make the same amount of money as doing six things. But if you do six things, you have less time, you have less freedom, you have more distractions, you have more stress, more time away from your family, less predictability. So there are other ways to to see success faster, but if you think about what ultimately brings you happiness in the long term, it's not going to be more money. Like, yes, go get money. Yes, find success, but there's not a big. Eventually, everybody reaches a point where you don't you don't find more happiness with more money. You can still pursue more money, but eventually your mind shifts and the money starts to be okay, I have what I need to be comfortable, live a good life, and take care of my family. And then your mind shifts after that once you find that comfort. And it's like, okay, for the next dollar, how do I help somebody else? How do I make a bigger impact on the community? So there's going to become a point where you stop chasing money for yourself. And so would you rather that moment be doing something you enjoy and it is one thing, or would you rather it be six things and you're stressed out and you have less time to enjoy the success that you found?
Right, right. And there's one thing I got in my mind, like I wanted to ask over here. When you say not long enough time, you see the rewards, but after a certain period of time, can we please say that this is going to take this certain time? Can we predict it like any given amount? Can we give any specific time or amount
Some
of time?
examples. Yeah, I'll give you an example. So let's talk about social media. So when you run a business and you talk about what you offer, when you're an entrepreneur, usually it's because you have the best product in whatever category you sell, or you're the most passionate about it. And it should be one of those two things are pretty close, because if you don't have a good product or you're not really passionate about it, why are you selling that product? So it should be one of those two. Now, because it's one of those two, then you should have good things to share about your product or service, and you should be able to talk about it. And so that's where you talk about those things and your passion behind what it is that you offer on social media and your blogs for SEO. Now, when I started focusing on, so about 3 years ago, I deleted social media. At the time, I was only on Facebook. And when I deleted it, I really deleted everything. So I deleted every post I had made. I deleted every comment I had made on somebody else's Facebook. I deleted every private message I had. I unfriended everybody. So I just wiped everything out. And then what I realized was a couple weeks later is I thought, well, why don't I turn it back on? And why don't I have an intention? Why don't I do something? Why don't I use social media for a purpose? And why don't I share my stories and inspire other people and talk about business and give advice? Now, this is where the timelines come in. So when I restarted that, the trick that I had to figure out was I like talking about my wife and kids, but how do I do that without boring the audience that follows me for business advice? Then the opposite of that, I like talking about business, but then how do I talk about entrepreneurship without boring my friends and family? And eventually I decided that it doesn't matter, because both of those things are me, and both of those topics are things that I like talking about. So I'm going to talk about both of them. Now, the timelines when I started doing that, it took about 3 months for once I turned everything back on to start to get some decent engagement. Then about 6 months is when I started to notice I was getting leads from it. And then at about 9 months is when I realized I had a lot of contracts out of it. So I went and did the math. And at about 9 months, just this strategy alone, not counting other things, just posting on social media added 150,000 US dollars in annual contracts. So it took me about 9 months or less to add an additional 6 figures in annual revenue. And all I did was talk about business and my wife and kids.
All right. All right. So, thank you. Thank you for, sharing this particular insight over here, because that was much needed. So, coming to this business part into this, uh, I would love to hear it from you, especially when did you start your journey?
Mm.
What was the, thought process that you had in your mind, that how you're going to sell your services, products that you had, or you had any mentor or something, or you already had the idea about it? How did it all start?
Yeah, good question. So there's a couple things we can talk about. So I didn't have a mentor, and that's worth talking about. So there's everybody knows the advantages of a mentor. So if you find somebody that you can believe and gives good advice, then get a mentor. But I'd also like to say that you can give yourself the freedom to trust in yourself too. You don't have to have a mentor, and oftentimes you can find mentorship and leadership in the opposite way. And that's what happened for me. Is I saw a lot of successful people that did business bad, and I saw them making decisions where they were greedy and selfish, or got into legal trouble. So my mentor was seeing what other people did wrong, and I gave myself the freedom to say, okay, I don't necessarily have a mentor to follow, but I can learn from what people do wrong, and then I can do the opposite of that. And so that was a big mentor for me in business and personal. So, I grew up, we all grow up with different circumstances as a kid. And so I learned a lot in going, okay, when I'm an adult, I don't want to do that. And I don't want to repeat that. And I'm going to do my family different. And then when I got into business, it was the same thing. Okay, don't be selfish, don't be greedy, don't break the law, don't do those things. And so I never had a direct mentor, but when I started in business, I also gave myself the freedom to not stress about knowing the answers. And a lot of us as newer entrepreneurs, and especially with social media makes it a lot harder and a lot worse, because we see everybody else posting cool pictures and accomplishing amazing things. You don't know if that's real or not. And the majority of the times it's just a staged photo to look better than it really is. But even the people that do find success and share it on social media, you don't know if that took them a year or 10 years or 20 years. And so we see that just the end of success, and then we're comparing our whole journey versus, the beginning of our journey versus the end of somebody's journey. So I gave myself the freedom to not feel like I had to know the answers. And what that allows you to do is it gives you the freedom to figure out what you like and don't like in business. And so I always say treat business and entrepreneurship like you're in a relationship and you first start dating somebody. When you go on that first date, you look at it and you say, I like this and I don't like this about this relationship. And then when that relationship ends, you learned something. And then you take what you learned and you go into the next relationship and you go, okay, this is how I can make the relationship better by doing these things and avoiding these things. It's the same thing in entrepreneurship. You should date the opportunities and you should see what you like and you don't like. And then when one venture fails, then now you know that that's not something that you enjoy. And that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. Now you have more clarity. And so then you go into the next opportunity and you feel more confident, and then you can give more passion and more time to it. So give yourself the freedom to experiment a little bit. Now, the way that I got into SEO was the same thing. I didn't know. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I was confident I would do something. And so I gave myself the freedom to explore. Now, the way that I got into online marketing was I started a website for myself. I used to be into cars. And so when I was in my 20s, I started a website that talked about modifications and turbos and wheels and body kits and all those sorts of things. And that grew a community. And as it started to get thousands of followers, then I asked myself, how do I make this better? Then I got into design. And then as the website grew, I said, how do I monetize this? That's how I got into marketing. So then I did it on the side. I think all of us at some point do web designs on the side or some sort of side hustle. So I did that for a while until I had an opportunity to take a job. And so then I had 2 jobs as a web designer. And then what happened was the last employer that I ever had broke the law and they got shut down. And so the government came in. There's, I don't know if your audience will be familiar with the different U.S. governments, but, there's like the FTC and the sheriffs. And so these are like major legal government entities that came in and they shut this business down. So I had a choice when that got shut down. I could either wait to see if I still had a job and do nothing and then cross my fingers and hope, or I could go find a new job and leave that one and not wait. Or I had enough clients on the side that I could take the leap of faith and start my own business. And so I did the math, and I'd lose the income from my day job, but I still had a little bit from my side hustle. So I wouldn't have a lot of money, but I would have enough to pay my bills. But if I could pay my bills and not work a day job, now I have way more time. And so I chose to start my own thing and do my own business. I ended up, having all that extra time. And with that time, I was able to make my lost money back within just, I think it was 3 months. But then I was self-employed. I mean, and then how cool is that, right? When you can pay your bills and you manage your own schedule, that's the first thing. So that's a good example of what we talked about earlier. You don't need to make $1 million right away. If you can pay your bills and have total freedom of your time, that's amazing. Like that feeling right there of stability and you being your own boss, that's the first taste of success that you need. That's enough for you to get addicted to the process and go, okay, now I know what this is all about, and now I can figure out how to make this better. So I think that's the long answer. And I think the short answer is just give yourself freedom and flexibility to really figure out how to do it the right way instead of the fast way.
Right. All right. Over here, there are a couple of things that you have shared into it. So I would like to, mention this, that you said that uh, about this mentor thing, that you had the control over yourself, that you were capable enough observing the things, and that's how you figured it out. And the other thing is that you had, the main part was that you had the control on yourself, right? What has to be taken care of and in which we have to go, right? In which field do we have to go, right? Okay. So coming forward to one question over here, that's very, very important question. It's like
Mm-hmm.
uh, you mentioned now you are into SEO, right? Search engine optimization for the last 2 years. how much time did it take you to figure it out that SEO is a thing that now I am all into it. I'm not going to look into the any other thing.
Yeah. So I think you meant 2 decades, not 2 years. Yeah, it's been a long time.
Two decades.
Um, 2 decades. Yeah. So the way that I got into it was when I was first self-employed, I did web design. And I had a customer ask me what I knew about Google. And what I'm about to share with the audience is a great opportunity in how you can get your first clients. And when they asked me what I knew about Google, I told them that I knew enough that I felt like I could help them, but I did not know enough that I felt comfortable charging them. So this is, or you also asked, how do you decide to sell your product? So you want to have integrity and you want to be transparent. There's other ways to make money faster, but you can't sell faster than your reputation. So what I mean by that is eventually if you sell a lot and you don't deliver what you offer, your reputation is going to catch up. So I was always very honest. And so with this first SEO customer, I said, I can help you, but I don't want to charge you, but I also don't want to work for free. So how about we make a deal? Let's agree to a goal. And the goal was, certain words at a certain position on Google. Don't pay me anything unless I make that happen. And then if I make that happen, then you owe me retroactively. You have to pay me back. And we also start billing monthly. So that way they had no risk. They didn't have to pay anything. I felt comfortable because then I didn't have to charge them because I wanted to figure it out, but I didn't know the answers yet. But then I also wasn't working for free because if I made it happen, then they paid me. And so I ended up making it happen and then they paid me. So they became my first SEO customer. So then I took that same offer to a second design client. So customer number 2, who knew customer number 1. So I went and I said, here's what I just did for those guys. Do you want to do the same deal? And they said yes. And so I found success in getting them to rank for customer number 2. So at that point is when I said, I enjoy the process. I like SEO. Let's see if I can make this the full-time thing. Now that I've been doing it for 17 years, a couple of years ago, I asked myself, why am I still doing this? Like, do I still enjoy it or is it just comfortable? And what I realized was what I like about SEO is it's consistent enough that each day I know what I'm doing. I know what my team is working on. I know the types of projects we're working on. I know what our goals are, but it changes enough to keep it interesting. And so it holds my attention still. So that's why I still do it this many years later, is that it's predictable, but also changing and exciting. So that's how I got into it. And that's important on how you sell things is, over the years, as I increase prices, the first question I would ask is, what am I going to deliver for that price? Of course, everybody wants more money, but what are you going to give the customer in exchange for the value for that increased price? And so that's the same thing as transparency. So in what you start selling and what you when you grow your business, when you increase your prices, the answer should always be transparency and integrity, because that's what's going to build your reputation and that's what's going to grow your business in the long term.
Right. So keeping it transparent and having that skill set to fulfill that value, right? So that's something what is important. So coming over here, this question is coming directly from the audience. So there was a one person who just asked this question. He has been into the business, like I won't say the business, but into this digital marketing world for the last 2 years, and
Mm-hmm.
have been selling the services here and there. Let's say sometimes he sold social media marketing, sometimes he sold web designing. So now he is really pretty confused. What shall he do? Because he is not getting any more results.
Well, I think you just answered the question. If he's confused, then the customers are going to be confused. So you can only sell what you're confident in. So I would choose which one you're more passionate about, because when you can be more passionate about a service, you can deliver it better. And when you can deliver it better, you can charge more prices, higher prices. And when you charge higher prices, you're more interested in the project. And so then it creates a circle where you support the customer and the customer supports you and the project supports both of you. You got to pick a focus. There's Just like we talked earlier, where do you want to do one thing or do you want to do six things? And every time I've asked my other friends that do multiple things, if I haven't done this in a long time, but years ago, when I would talk to them, I'd say, maybe I should add a second thing because I see you doing six things. Maybe I should do two things. And every single one of them says, don't do it because it becomes too stressful and too distracting. And then you're in the situation you're in now where you're lost and confused and you're not passionate. So give yourself the freedom, like we talked earlier. If you don't know the answer right now, if you pause and ask yourself, you probably have one in your heart that stands out more than the other, one service over the other. And if you don't, that's okay. Give yourself time to think about it. Think about the advantages and disadvantages of all the different services that you can offer. Pick one of them. I'm not the traffic expert. I don't do paid ads. I talked about social media today, but I don't offer it as a service. I do one thing, and everybody knows that I do one thing.
That is SEO.
SEO. And so when people think about SEO, they don't say Damon is an SEO option. What they say is Damon is the only SEO option. So pick one thing and then you become known for just that one thing, and then everybody wins.
Right. That's something interesting part is that choose it, make a decision, go ahead about it. That's something what you said.
Yeah, and give it long enough to figure out if you made the right decision. And if you made the wrong decision, that's okay. But don't do multiple things at the same time, and pick one and do it for at least a year. Do it for long enough that you really feel if you enjoy it or don't enjoy it. It's either got to be so painful that you know with certainty that you never want to do it again, or it's got to be so enjoyable and inspiring that you know with certainty that you want to do it for the foreseeable future. Do it long enough that you have a very solid answer. And then if you do it for a year and you don't, that's okay. Now you have more clarity on what you don't want to do, which means you now have more clarity on the options left that you do want to do.
All right. All right. So can we take one or two more questions over here?
Yeah, I got a few more minutes.
Okay. All right. So what is the best question that you have been ever asked in any of the podcasts or any interview?
What is the best question? I can't think of the specific question, but I think the types of questions that I enjoy and I often get the most feedback from after the recordings get published is personal things. I think so many of us, especially the people that are newer to entrepreneurship, we underestimate how much our personal lives influence our business success. So I've had, like, one example is I had somebody send me a really long message that thanked me for me sharing my story. And they talked about how they had an eating disorder and it changed their life. And like, I've never had an eating disorder. I've never talked about eating disorders. But when I shared my personal story about the struggles that I went through when I grew up, and we all have a story. We all have something that we went through as a child. We all have something that we go through as an adult. None of us are alone, but the difference is the people that share it. And so anytime I share these vulnerable stories on these podcasts and recordings, those are the ones that feel like we've talked about the importance of being relatable and being a human. And those are the types of things that establish relationships. And those are the types of things that make an impact. I mean, I've helped countless people figure out how to sell more online, but the ones that really make a difference for me and them are the ones that say, you helped me figure out how to save more time so I can spend more time with my wife and kids. Or you made me realize that job wasn't for me. And so I quit my job and now I'm doing something, I make less, but I'm so much more happier. And so when you have a platform like this and an opportunity to talk to people, if you really want to make an impact, talk about business, but you also talk about just life and personal stuff, and as much as the guest is comfortable talking about. And that's where people really have the breakthroughs, is they go, oh, I'm not alone.
Right. And that's what my motto is, to bring the guest over here and talk about their journey, how the journey has been. And when people feel an imposter syndrome kind of thing, how do they overcome that? So thank you so much for answering all those questions out there. I really feel, grateful that you have answered all the question, and you, the audience who is listening to us over here right now. Thank you so much to you as well that you keep on listening to us every single time. And I must say that you shall go and check out his website. I'll keep it in the description. I believe that's something what I can do so that people get in touch with
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Right? Perfect. So, all right, here, can we take just one question? The
Yeah,
last.
we can do one more. Yep.
Okay, perfect. So, you have made it from scratch, and this podcast is all about rags to riches.
Hmm.
How to one? What is the one, I would say, advice you would like to give so that people go from rags to riches?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is, when we talk about rags to riches, it's about financial reward. And as entrepreneurs, we should pursue financial stability and financial freedom. But everybody that achieves financial freedom, really what they end up appreciating most is freedom of time. So, like, if you think about financial freedom, you don't really want the money. You want the lifestyle and the freedom that the money gives you. So don't feel obligated to make a certain amount of money. Don't give yourself a dollar amount, because it's probably not the dollar amount that's going to bring you happiness. It's going to be something along the journey. But whatever you define as success, whether it's personal reward or financial incentive, one of the best things that I ever did was stop listening to other people's advice. So my advice is to not listen to my advice.
No,
But
there is a one thing. Sorry to interrupt you here.
uh,
You should only listen to the people whom you think that you want to become like that, and they have achieved something. So you are the
yeah,
one whom people should listen to.
yeah. I mean, it's true. Like, there's a lot of people that have found financial success, but they are personally miserable.
Right.
So don't get too. I'm all about capitalism. I'm all about financial freedom. I'm all about taking risk and earning your reward. But I think it's just really important for people to understand that along the journey, at some point, the next dollar matters less. So if you make your entire career decision based on what's going to make you the most amount of money instead of a lot of money with happiness, there's a big difference. So, I mean, it's just like being a parent. Like, any of the listeners that have kids, you probably had countless advice from other people on how to be a parent, and the majority of it you ignore, because there's different ways, right? You have a different family, and you want to be a parent a different way. It's the same
Right.
thing in business. Like, there's different ways to do business, and there's different things that you define as happiness. So don't feel obligated just because somebody else found happiness. That's good for them, and congratulations. It doesn't mean the same path is the way that you're going to find happiness and success. So pick a path, commit to your path, be your biggest cheerleader, be your biggest supporter, figure out what you like and don't like, and don't feel like you have to do anything a way that somebody else has done.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much once again. The more I feel grateful, the less it would be. Once again, thank you so much from the bottom
Yeah,
of my
thanks.
heart.
Yeah, thanks for the invite, and I appreciate everybody listening.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you, everyone. Go check out his website and please do connect with him if you want